Welcome, everybody. We will get started. And so, what I want to do, first of all, is introduce you to a good friend of mine. Her name is Amy Statler. Amy, are you there?
I am here.
There you go. How are you? Great to see you
I'm
again.
doing great.
Okay. So, just for the folks at home, I'm going to let everybody know that we are friends. We've been friends. We vacation together. We party together. We do a lot of stuff. So we are very familiar with each other. So if we get around, that's just part of it. So very good. All right. So Amy, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, how you came to join Lifestyles, and give us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I just want to start off by saying, as always, it's a pleasure and an honor to tell my story, and hopefully it'll resonate with some of the folks and it'll be a good use of their time. And yes, Lee and I are friends, good friends. We do a lot together. So hopefully we can keep this on the straight and narrow during this presentation. I was born and raised in Ohio. I have a bachelor's degree in engineering, and I worked in the energy field for 16 years in various roles, including internationally in Argentina. In 2006, I started a maid service. I kept that for 12 years. And during that time, I was kind of looking at real estate, reading about real estate, and I just wasn't sure if I was ready to take the big step into it. And so I just kind of stuck with the maid service for a while, but then finally I just went for it. I just pulled the trigger, joined Lifestyles in May of 2013, and I bought my first apartment complex in 2014.
Very good. So I want to back up because you kind of froze up a little bit. So you started out engineering. You actually formed your own maid service. That's an entrepreneurial thing,
yeah.
Right?
It was a franchise, but yes, I was the owner and sole owner of it, and pretty much runs as your own business. Are you still having difficulty hearing me?
Not hearing you. It kind of freezes every once in a while, but I think we're good. So let's go on to the next
that's
slide.
All right.
Yep. So why'd you join Lifestyles?
Well, with Lifestyle, I think you need to go to the next slide, right?
Yep, we're here.
Okay. All right. Well, as I mentioned, I'd been reading about real estate for many years. I did some training programs, the Kiyosaki program, maybe not as colorful as your late night programs that you did with your single family, but I really felt like I needed to be around people, like-minded people, in order to be successful. So I found Lifestyles. I was at another real estate association's meeting, and a lot of conversations are going on, but I kept hearing Lifestyles Unlimited, Lifestyles. And I was thinking, I got to find out what this is. So I Googled it after I left there and ended up attending a seminar. It was like a lunchtime seminar, and I signed up to be a PIG member that day.
Very good. Very good. Awesome. Okay. Well, what are we going to talk about today? What's your case study about?
We are going to talk about one of the properties that we own in Crosby. It's called Crosby Square Apartments, and 32 units built in 1983. We purchased that in June of 2015 at 1.15 million. That's $36,000 a door. Cash out of pocket. There's 4 of us invested in this property.
Amy, hold on one second. You're like freezing in and out on your video. Can you maybe cut the video and just talk?
Sure.
We want to see if because it's kind of going in and out, and they're not really hearing what you're saying.
Okay. So are you hearing me okay now?
Yes, perfectly. And I'll walk you through. So we're talking about the Crosby Squares apartment in Crosby, Texas, 32 units. So go ahead.
Lee, this is Dave.
Okay.
No,
hold on.
You are going in and out, and she's going in and out. Just so you know, both of your internet connections are not perfect right now. So she can leave her, because I'm hearing her clear, just so you know, it's just on your end. So she can leave her video on. Her audio is just a little bit behind, just so you know. Okay?
Okay.
So it's fine.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
It's fine. Just
okay, back on.
Okay.
All right. So I guess it's your connection this time, Lee. Okay. So again, cash out of pocket. 345,000. That was from four of us. The initial financing was about 862,000. The interest rate was 5.25. We did get 6 months interest only. We got a capital repair or rehab loan at 275,000. And then fast forward to 2020, we did refinance this property just recently. We refinanced 1.9 million. That's the amount of the loan. The interest rate is 3.99. And just to mention, that's a 65% loan to value. So we're leveraged, pretty conservatively there.
Awesome. Okay, a couple things here. First of all, this is 32 units and it was $1 million deal. This was your actual second deal, correct?
That's right.
And how much was your first deal?
How many units?
Yeah, how many units and how much did you pay for your first deal?
There were 17 units, so about half the size, and we paid 900,000 for it.
Okay, great. So you started your first purchase was 17 units, then you went up to 32 units. Price was about the same. A lot of our newer members, they have problems kind of pulling the trigger. It's very scary. They have a lot of anxiety when they first buy. Did you experience any of that?
Honestly, I didn't. I think that I felt very comfortable after joining Lifestyles. I mean, that was the missing piece for me. As I mentioned, I read a lot. Being an engineer, we like to do our research on things, but I read a lot. I felt comfortable with a lot of the concepts. I just needed that final piece of getting around people that impressed me and knew what they were talking about and had walked that path that I was about to go down. So I honestly didn't feel any anxiety. I felt very comforted by being part of Lifestyles.
So you found people at Lifestyle that impressed you?
Are you fishing for compliments there, Lee? Is that what we're doing here? I don't know. I mean, no. Should I throw you a bone?
Throw you a bone. Tell me something now.
And one more thing I want to bring up for the folks out there listening, this deal was 345,000. Amy didn't do that by herself. She mentioned she had four other partners. Just so you know, because there's a lot of new folks listening, go, I don't have 345 grand, I have 50 grand or whatever. Just so you know, the rate of return is the rate of return, regardless of what the partner puts in, whether they put 100 grand in, 50 grand in, 25 grand in a deal, just so you understand that. So if you're new and you were in this deal, it's just a rate of return when we get to that screen. So, and we have people invest as low as 25K in deals. I just want folks to know that if they're new for the first time.
Yeah, David, I think you're going to talk about this in your seminar, but we have leads and we have passive investors who, again, they'll be a partner and they'll passively invest a certain amount of money. And I think the single family girl that was on earlier said, yeah, I just give them my money and then I read a report once a month and every quarter I collect the check. And I'm like, she doesn't worry about it. I'm like, well, the leads worry about it. I know Amy is a lead also on some other deals, but yeah, if you're a passive, it's kind of nice. That's the ultimate lifestyle eventually, is to become a passive in all these deals. So, all right, so let's get back to Crosby Square. Let's get back up one screen. I'm sorry, back up one. All right, so I just want everybody to understand, again, what David was saying. We're cash out of pocket for $345,000. That's how much they put into it. She financed the rest to get to the closing costs, and she had 6 months of interest only, depending on your loan. Some start off with a 12-month interest only. Some are not interest only at all, similar to your mortgage. Like if you buy a house, you're paying principal right off the bat. Your capital repairs were $275,000. Were those rolled into the loan, or were those kind of out of pocket on this loan?
Those were part of the loan. They were in addition to the $862,000.
Perfect. Okay. So in the multifamily, a lot of our rehab costs and the single family, you roll into the loan. So that's why we go out and we contractor bids to see how much it's going to cost to put new roofs, new windows, new signs, all that kind of goes into there. So very good. Now, one thing you did do this, and in 2020 you refinanced, which is awesome. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But what I want to get to is you started in 2015 on this, right? So a lot of people are going to say, well, that was 5 years ago. That was 6 years ago. We're in 2020. And I agree with that, but here's the deal. If you hadn't have invested then, you would not be seeing those returns today. You have to get started somewhere. So for those of you that are just listening out there, you've got to get started. And like what, again, the girl on the single family was talking about earlier, she wished she'd have done this 10 years ago. Anybody we talk to, a lead, a passive, and adjoining lifestyles, we all, and I think Amy will attest too, I wish we'd have had this 10 years prior to when we found it, and it would have been great. So get started and
Well, there's
good.
there's a saying that I like to think about, and it's the best time to plant a tree is 25 years ago, and the second best time is today.
I like that. That's awesome. So full of wisdom.
You can use that if you want. I'll
Okay.
let you.
All right, thank you. All right, so next slide, please. All right, so a little bit about the numbers. So this is as of today, correct? These numbers?
Yeah, these are annual numbers, like the past 12 months, basically.
Okay, perfect. So we're currently doing income of around 386,000, expenses around 196,000, which gets us a net operating income, which is income minus expenses, at 190,000. Okay, then we take out our debt coverage ratio and our debt coverage, our principal and interest and capital, and we got to get to our cash flow numbers. So you're currently cash flowing $6,700 a month, right?
Yes,
And
that is correct.
okay, and then that's your cash. What we deal with is a cash on cash return, and what that is your annual cash flow divided by your initial capital you put in, right? So right now you're estimating your cash flows are 23% a year based on your current capital, right?
That's correct. We did refinance, and again, this is a 12-year look back. So
Yep.
after the refinance, I don't know how much you want to go into that, but after the refinance, that cash on cash return did come down some, but we're still cash flowing at around 15%, even after taking out all of the money on what we're going to talk about here in the next bullet point, the refi.
Very good. Okay, so the refinance, that means in year 5, you actually went back to the bank and you said, I would like to refinance this loan. I want a new loan, take out my existing loan. And with that, you were able to pull out a lot of cash, it looks like, right?
Yes. Yeah, we were. We put in our pocket 663,000 from the cash out refi. There's an additional 109,000. What's that?
How much did you originally invest?
345.
Wow.
345.
345, and then you refinanced and took out 663,000.
Right, plus another 109,000 that's in. Thank you. That's in escrow. Due to COVID, it's just kind of the lender required this as a safeguard for them, and that'll be released to us no later than May of 2021. So that's actually in addition to that 663.
Okay, so a little bit about that. So you actually refinanced this during the COVID period, which kudos, because there's
Right.
all kinds of ups and downs. Lenders were throwing all kinds of new regulations and new requirements and stuff that we
Yep.
have never seen in the past. So we talked, and again, I talked to Amy a lot about this during this refinance. So we went over all the scenarios, and we were like, she was talking about which one do you think is best, and we're like, well, which one do you think? What do you want to do for long term? Because you plan on keeping this property for another couple of years, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so when you refinance versus sell, I think we had this conversation too. I'm like, why don't you just sell it? And you're like, well, what am I gonna do with the money? I like this property, I like the location. So when you do refinance,
Exactly.
you've got to put a loan in place that's going to continue to get your cash on cash returns, get money out if you want to. In this particular case, did you hold some money back to do some additional capital repairs with this refinance?
Yeah, we actually did. We held back $30,000. We're doing some exterior work, replacing some doors and some sliders, just to kind of spruce up the place.
Very good, because it's been 5 years, right?
That's right.
Right. So again, what David mentioned earlier, we are not slumlords. So there's a before and after picture of the sign. I like that. But I like the before sign too.
I love that before sign. I just love it.
Yeah. So
It's
you
my
are not the
screensaver on
landlord
my
who
phone. No.
held some capital back because you're gonna every 3 or 4 or 5 years you're doing capital improvements to maintain the property and to extend it. You're still trying to raise rents along the way, right?
Yes,
Very good.
absolutely.
Awesome. So, man. So this before and
So yeah, we
after.
had
But
apparently we had Batman living in one of the units there, and we had an area
okay.
where I guess anybody could throw trash. So we've made some improvements.
Those are nice improvements, actually. Okay. So we're gonna go. Hold on. So let's throw this in here right now, just for the people at home. So this before. This is not. This is kind of the after, right? You had an incident before that. Okay. So what
Yes,
happened
we
in
had
year 3?
in year 3 we had a pretty devastating fire at the property. It put out of commission half of the property, 16 units.
Wow.
So we did have insurance. I relied heavily on Lifestyles Mentors, contractor. Gambit Construction was very crucial in getting us back to what you see there on the right side. But it did put us out of commission on half of the property for about a year.
Very good. Okay, so not very good, but that sucks. No, but a lot of people, I mean, even as a skeptic looking on now, you're like, oh my God, what happens if you have a fire? What happens if you have a flood? Well, we have insurance, right? And getting through that insurance process is tedious, but you get on the other side of it. There's people that we ask. I'm actually going through this. Orange, Texas, I have an apartment complex that was Laura just destroyed, and now I think Gamma, whoever's coming, is looking at it again tonight or tomorrow. But that's why we have insurance, and we get on those insurance companies, and it basically builds it back after the fact. And you'll see some numbers here in just a sec. The after has enabled you to raise rents even more, right?
Yes, and I'd like to kind of expand on what you said about a flood, because I didn't mention it, but it's kind of, I don't know, kind of funny now that we're through it. But we had the fire, which took out half of the apartment complex, as I mentioned. And then 6 weeks later, Harvey hit, and the 16 units that were left, it flooded out the bottom floors. So we lost another 8 units for a period of time. But we did have flood insurance, and it actually, we got those back pretty quickly. But it is kind of, it's kind of funny. Somebody says like an algebra problem. If you have a 32 unit complex and you lose 50% to a fire, and then 50% of what's left to a flood, how many units do you have left?
I mean,
So
really.
I have to laugh about it now, or I'll cry. But anyway, no, it really, we were able to get through it. As you can see, the result. When you're in the middle of it, it's tough, but you do have insurance. We relied on a public adjuster. We relied on Lifestyles Mentors, and we pulled out of it, and now we're bigger and better than ever.
Yeah, I'll go back to you. And again, this is from experience as well, personal experience. The people that that we've met at Lifestyles and are kind of now our friends, are basically anything we have a problem with. If God forbid anything happens to our property, there are 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people we instantly can call and say, oh my God, who do I call for this? And they're like, call this person, call this person, call this person. You're like, okay, thank you. So just like
Yep.
anything in life, if you have it, once you purchase it, you're going to figure out the way through it. And knowing that Lifestyles and the people that you meet that have done this or been through some things like this in the past, they'll direct you and they'll tell us who to call. And the mentors, we don't know everything, but we can talk to people and we can get you in touch with other people who have been through that, maybe, that can help. So we all work together and we just kind of take care of each other. So that's kind of the backbone. So, and it works. It's working
Yep.
for me right now in Orange, and it worked for Amy in the past. So kudos. All right. So next slide, please. Okay, so these are your cash flow, your cash on cash projection, but I think you're going to correct me and tell me these are actual numbers, correct?
They are actual numbers, yes, because as we mentioned, we're in year 5 now.
Okay, so we're going to show year 1, year 2. We're skipping year 3 because that was the year of the fire, flood, locusts. What else? No, I'm just kidding. Everything else?
We did have a bee infestation where we
A
took
bee?
400 pounds of honey out of the walls of the apartment.
Nice. Very good.
So yes,
And then
we did almost have locusts.
and then year 4 and then year 5 is where you started the
Year
refinance.
5 is the past year basically. We're into year 6 now.
Very good. Okay. So just to show people where kind of the fruition of real estate. So I'm looking at the revenue line. We went from 236 to in year 4 370. That is a huge increase in revenue. So what was the primary efforts to get from 236 to 370?
Well, the majority of that is raising rents, because when you rehab your property and you make it a lot nicer and people want to live there, you can do that. So the majority of that is rents, but we did some other things like water bill back, and also smaller, but charging for reserved parking, things like that.
Right. And I
So
think David
we got more focused.
right. I think David in his presentation has a list of about 18, 19 different things you can do to increase rents. Was one of the upsides that you saw when you first purchased it, were rents kind of undervalued when you purchased it, or were they right in line with the market?
Well, Crosby's such a small market that, it's a little tough to say, because you saw the picture of the sign, you saw the picture of the building. I mean, the rents were low, but I'm not sure if we could have squeezed a whole lot more out of it. But we knew what we were going to do. We had a plan. We had a rehab plan. We knew what we were going to improve on the exterior, on the interior, and we followed that plan, and we were able to raise rents more than we expected, actually.
Very good. And again, and for those of y'all at home, David's going to go over this in the weekend, but the primary valuation of an apartment complex is net operating income and increasing that net operating income. And the easiest way and the main way you do that is by increasing revenue. Basically, you increase revenue, you increase revenue, you increase revenue. Expenses will kind of fall in line. You have to just keep them in check. But I mean, coming from I'm an accountant background, and I was like, okay, every little penny on the expense side. And then finally, one of my mentors slapped me on the back of the head, going, dude, it's not about the cost, it's about the income. Rent the units, rent the units, raise the rents, raise the rents, rent the rents, right? So I think, David, you'll go over that in the 2-day as well, correct?
Yeah, there's 28 different ways to raise income. Now, what Lee just said is super powerful. And I want you to remember this. When you come to my seminar this weekend, what Lee said is the key. It's not focused on expenses, cutting expenses. It's focused on increasing income, which you can see. Notice her expenses are going up every single year because she's running the property better. She's not bleeding it dry. So that's exactly it. But if you're new, all that at the top right now is gobbledygook. I understand you don't understand that, but look at it like investing in a bond. Look at the bottom numbers. We all understand that. 10% return, 14% return, 26% return. And if done correctly, it'll be tax-free income. You defer. We'll teach you that this weekend as well.
Very good. And so again, she'll get the expenses, primarily expenses went up to, I'm guessing, to your property taxes and insurance.
And insurance, yeah, those are the two main drivers of that.
Okay, very good. So then you get down to your net income or your net operating income, and again, that's how that's how your properties are evaluated. And David, we'll go over this in the next slide a little bit, and David will get to this in depth in the 2-day seminar this weekend. So net cash flow, again, we talked about that. That is the amount of cash after your debt service and your capex, and we're making 10 out of the box, 14 in year 2, year 3, probably somewhere. I think maybe, I don't know what happened in year 3.
We broke even, I think.
We broke even really good. In year 4, we had like a 25, 26% return, and you're looking at that's when you're like looking at the numbers going, God, we got to sell, we got to refinance, we got to do something to pull out this capital, because your net operating income increased, so the value of your property went up, and now that the value of your property went up, you've got a lot of equity in there, right? So you have to kind of get out that
That's
equity.
Correct.
And the only way to do that is to refinance or sell it. So you elected to refinance, and I think we talked about that earlier. You refinanced in year 5, and you pulled out again how much?
600 and what was it? 36,000, I think.
And you got another 100,000 plus to pull out this year after COVID.
Yeah, we
right?
got another 109,000. Yeah.
So that's
or
freaking
was
amazing.
it 663?
63.
It's
That's
it's
amazing.
it's
All right,
bad. I don't know, but we'll see it again.
so for the people at home, just so you understand, you have zero money in the deal right now.
Right.
You've gotten all your capital out, your initial capital plus some, and you're continuing to
And
cash
then
flow.
some.
And you still, I look back, you leveraged it. Your current leverage is at 65%, right? Which means you
Correct.
still got a ton of equity in there.
Right.
That's amazing. Awesome job. Awesome job. I'm glad you
Thank
planted
you.
this tree 5 years ago, right? As opposed to now.
Right. Right.
Okay, so this slide, okay, David's going to get into this a lot more this weekend, but basically, I just told you that the value of your property is based on your net of operating income. You take your net operating income, divide by what we call a cap rate, and you get the value of that property. When you first bought this property, you basically paid a little over $1 million for it. That was about a 7 cap,
Mm-hmm.
about. So year
Yeah.
one,
Well, we actually, yeah,
go ahead.
it was a little higher than that. Then the cap rates came down some.
Okay. All right. So for consistency purposes, year 1, 2, and 4, we basically would put it on a 7 cap. So we're going to take the net operating income divided by 0.07, and that's kind of the value of the property. So just in terms of equity capture, right? Theoretically, in year 1, based on your net operating income, just increasing it a little bit, we've increased the value of the property by $600,000. Year 2, it went up to like 879,000, and by year 4, we're almost at 1.5 million, which makes sense because you refinanced and you pulled back some of that equity. You captured some of the equity and paid you back. So in year 5, what was your current appraised value? When you refinanced, they gave you an appraisal. What was that?
That was 2.95 million.
Okay, so that's kind of our best testament for what it is. So 2.9 million in year 5. That's amazing returns right there.
And just for the folks out there listening, this math is wrong, guys. I don't know if you realize it, but it's pee in your pants excited numbers, because if you take 300,000 and you have about 1.5 million, that's like a 500% return, just so you guys know. So I like the conservative 129, but it's really like a 400 or 500% return, if that makes sense.
Okay. No worries. And again, David will get into that math this weekend as well. All right, so next slide. So that is, like David said, pee in your pants exciting. That's awesome returns. I'm just kind of pissed I wasn't in that investment, but go ahead. How did you achieve this?
Well, as I've been saying throughout this talk we're having, lifestyles was key in all of this. They're knowledgeable, the mentors are very accessible, and they have great training videos. So it's just pretty much everything you need. And
Wait,
and also the members.
Accessible, the mentors?
What did you say?
Did you say acceptable mentors or accessible mentors?
Accessible. Did it come out acceptable? You're very acceptable, Lee. So I'm not sure what you're worried about, but no, very, excuse me, very accessible. They answer their phone calls. They answer their text messages. The members at Lifestyles as well, they're very willing to offer their help. These guys know what they're doing. They've been doing it. Lifestyles has been around a long time, so we've got a lot of seasoned members there, and they're just very willing to help, and that's so important. It's so key, and you don't always find that in other industries, but this one, everybody's very forthcoming with any help that you need. Another thing we did was we rehabbed the units as quickly as possible. It's not always really easy to rehab units. You've got to move people out of the units to get them rehabbed. So we were very focused on that. We looked really hard at when leases were expiring and deciding whether to renew leases or try to encourage people that we liked that were living there to move to one of our rehab units, and maybe give a little incentives for that. The other thing is I have here non-renewal of undesirable resident leases. So, when you buy a property that looks like this, you get people that kind of look like they'd live there and act like they'd live there. And sometimes you don't want that at your property. And the problem is if you allow,
David, in our seminar, did we reference purple Martians? That's what we used to call them.
Purple Martians. That's
Yes,
Dell's term,
or
right?
a new modern term is a basket of deplorables.
Okay.
A basket of deplorables. Okay, so when you run into a basket of deplorables, I think it's very important to move that basket off of the property as quickly as possible, because if you allow them to stay and you allow them to live there and demonstrate bad behavior, because if they're not paying their rent, or whatever, they're doing other things and they're talking to their other tenants, and the longer they're there, the more likely the good people that you want to keep, they're leaving, because they don't want to live in the same property with the people that are breaking the rules and just living that basket way. So you have to be able to do that. It's a little bit scary sometimes, because you have this fear in the beginning, I think, of, I have to keep occupancy up, and but you just have to bite the bullet. You have to get rid of the people that are not who you're looking for in an ideal resident. The next thing on this is continuous improvement to the property. I think we heard in the last, the single family presentations about best product, best price. You'll hear Dell and the mentors say that a lot. And so you just want to keep your property up. You want to keep it nice. You want to constantly do improvements, big and small, and make it a nice place to live for people, and make them want to stay and renew a lease. Renewing a lease is very important. You don't have a lot of costs due to turnover. Then we continue to test the market rents. That's another thing that might be a little scary sometimes. You don't want to push people out by raising the rent too high, like when they renew or when you get new residents coming in. But it's really important, in order to find the top of the market or close to the top of the market, is just keep pushing rents up. As people start moving in, you just keep raising the rents until you hit that hard ceiling. When you hit that, you've hit the limit, and then you kind of sit there or back off maybe a little bit.
Right.
And then finally,
we always talk about in lifestyles, if you're 100% occupied, your rents are too low. Just by definition, when you're at 80% occupied, your rents are too high. So I definitely get that. And you were talking about people are kind of reluctant to raise rents. They don't want to be too high. Even on the single family presentation, I saw the rents they were getting. I was like, that looks a little low. I think they probably could have gotten a little bit higher than they were on that. But, so yes, rents are definitely some of the key that we're always looking for and always trying to push.
Yeah, you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone, I think, on some areas, and that's one of them. And then finally, relationships with vendors. I mentioned Gambit Construction before, but they really helped us. They were on time, within budget, very responsive, and that's so important. Being responsive, as we all know, is half the battle in anything. But it's really important to have good relationships with your vendors.
It really is, especially again, God forbid something happens. Like you have a fire or there's a flood or something major happens, you want to be able to call up that vendor and have that relationship where they're going to go and help you like immediately, not like, well, I mean, what are the terms? Are you going to be paying us in net 30? Blah, blah. You want to have that relationship so they know who you are, and you're not just like, okay, you're the 20th person that called during this flood, so you're down here on their list as far as up here. So 100%.
Really good point.
Vendors.
Really good point.
All right, awesome. So how's lifestyles changed your life?
Well, are you going to go to the next slide?
It's there.
I don't want to talk out of turn. Okay, so I'm in my RV right now. You can probably see it looks a little odd maybe with this funky thing going on in the ceiling. I sold my house a year ago. I bought an RV, and I have a cabin on the lake that I bought a few years ago. And I've been traveling, and so I'm at the RV during the week. If I'm not traveling, I go to the cabin on the weekends. I go to the property typically once a week. And where I have the RV parked at the RV park is close enough to the properties in Crosby, allows me to do that. So I'm just kind of living my dream right now. And when I wake up in the morning, I have to pinch myself, and I just get up with a smile on my face. I'm so grateful for what I have, and it's just awesome. I just can't say enough about it. And my dream is different than other people's dreams, but this is proof you can get there.
Very good. And good things happen to good people, because again, even at your RV park, you ended
Thanks,
up with
Lee. Yeah.
the best slot on that RV park, right?
The best spot. The best spot.
See? That's
Like
awesome.
It's amazing.
That is awesome.
When I'm
not sure
at my desk in the
park is, but I'm glad you got it.
Well, I'll tell you, since you asked, when I sit at my desk, which I'm at right now, I see nothing but woods across. I'm in front of all these windows, and it's all woods. And then to the left is a lake. It's a small lake, but it has a fountain. And right in front of that is a dog park, and I have a dog. And everything is right here for me, and I feel like I'm all by myself in the wilderness.
Very nice. It's probably where you need to be.
Best spot in the RV park to find.
Awesome. Very good. So let's go to, what are your goals going forward now that you're living the lifestyle?
Well, we do have 2 more properties in Crosby. So we're going to refinance one of the other properties. And I'm going to continue to travel in the RV. We've been doing some traveling. We've gone to Mount Rushmore and been to Colorado, a couple other places in Texas, Palo Duro. But just kind of do some things that I've always dreamed about doing, but haven't ever done them. And then, just maintaining that good balance of work and play. I tend to be more work driven. I don't know. It's just kind of how I'm wired. So I struggle with this maintaining the balance thing, but it's kind of a goal for me. I have to keep myself, on the play side as opposed to the work side, but I push and I get there, and it's nice. So, and long-term goals, I do plan to invest in more apartment complexes, but I'm a careful investor. I'm going to do it, something looks right to me. I don't just jump into deals, and lifestyles helps with that. They help you analyze deals and know whether to take the chance or not. I'd also like to write a book. I think I'm going to write it about my sister. I think I've honed in on the topic. She's not going to like what I write, so I think I'm just going to write it and then see what she thinks, and then just enjoy life, like I said.
Sure, she will love it.
I hope she's not listening or calling.
Exactly. Very good. All right. Well, I think we can open it up for questions. If anybody has any questions. No? Oh, I'm sorry. Who's on your team? I forgot. I apologize.
Okay. Okay, so Lifestyles members and mentors, and the great and well-loved Lee Carroll made the top of the list there. I also want to thank Tina Walker, Christine Diamond, Scott Tenney, Miranda Dick, and also the T&L group that we have. My dedicated property management team, Shannon Jones, my right hand, Jose Arredondo, maintenance guy, Eric McKinster. These 3 they're awesome. They work together. They make fun of each other. They help each other. There's just tremendous teamwork here, and I'm just so proud of them, and I'm so lucky that I have them. I just have to pinch myself. I'm just so lucky, knock on wood. And then again, Gambit Construction, I've brought them up before, but they really did help us through the fire. And just like you said, Lee, when you have an issue, you want to have that relationship so you can pick up the phone. Like when we had the flood, everybody was calling the contractors. I need fans, I need somebody to tear out sheetrock, I need moisture meter testing done. And if you have a relationship, you're going to be at the top of that list.
Yep. Very good. I'm going to re-emphasize your team too, your management team, especially being an IRO or a small owner. Your team, your property manager, your maintenance guy, your whole team, they are key. And you have to find the right team for the right property and the right team for the right owner. I mean, you got to have all 3 of those things line up. And once you get that, it's amazing how things work, but it's hard to get there. Like Dell used to say, real estate's easy, people are hard. But once you line those people up, it's amazing how easy it becomes. That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yep. Yep.
All right, now I think we can get into some questions if anybody has any.
All right, folks, let's get to them questions.
All right. So for the Crosby Square Apartments, do you have an apartment manager?
Yes. If you go back to the previous slide, you'll see Eric McKinster. He's the property manager. And we actually, as I mentioned, we have three apartment complexes. And actually, we also have a single family house in Crosby, and he manages all of those.
Okay, so it's not a full, you don't have a designated, if you were to only own those 36 units, it wouldn't be a full-time manager, a full-time maintenance position. It would be a part-time.
No.
So because you have more
That's
units
right.
in the area, you're able to economies of scale there.
That's right. And that is very important and very helpful when you can get to that point.
Where did the residents that were burnt out go while you were rehabbing? What happened to them?
We actually had, just as a coincidence, a lot of vacancies in the other properties that we had. And normally we were running at around 93 to 95%, but the one property we were rehabbing, so we were you kind of go through ups and downs on rehabbing when you're rehabbing with more vacancies sometimes than usual. So it just happened that we had enough vacancies, so we were able to move everybody that wanted to go somewhere other than go to family into one of these units, and we kept them at their same rate for rent for 3 months, and we got food delivered and clothes, and we really tried to help them. So it worked out good in that way.
Very good. Again, economies of scale, if you buy those people that are just starting out and you buy a 10 unit, like, okay, if there's like another 15 units that's down the street, buy that 15 units. And then, there's another 30 unit that comes here, you're going to be surprised. You just start building those economies of scale so you can hire a full-time manager, a full-time maintenance guy, and then it will go so much better. I'm also going to point out, Amy, that again, we're not slumlords. When those people moved, you were taking care of them. You were helping them. You were treating them like people, which is what apartment community owners really need to do, is treat our residents like family sometimes. So kudos to you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big thing what Lee brought up. We have communities. We don't have complexes. They start as complexes. We turn them into happy places, communities. Words matter.
What was the cap rate used when you bought the property? Capitalization rate.
The cap rate was 8% when we bought it.
Okay.
And for new folks, that's gobbledygook. Don't worry about it. I'll teach what that means this weekend at a third grade level.
How many of the basket of deplorables did you let go on initial renewal?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a process. We're not just kicking them out. What we're doing is when their lease expires, we give them that very kind notice that says we are not renewing your lease. So I can't really say exactly because it's been a while, but just as soon as that lease was up, they were gone.
Okay. And I'll interject also from an operational standpoint. And when we have owners that buy a new property, the last thing you want to do is kick 100% or 50% of those people out, because your income goes from here down to here if you do that. So that's a process. You're always looking for that tail, right? You cut off the last 5%. I want these residents gone. The next month, here's another 5%, and just keep going like that. But yeah, you don't go in and throw everybody out unless you have a fire or a flood or something that forces you to do that. You do not do that on your own.
We had that.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, she had everything go wrong. And what you're going to learn is we have operations consultants, people who ran thousands of units with 20 plus years experience. They'll teach you about staggering your leases. They'll teach you about which months are better than others. So there's a whole process to that.
Why 65% leverage on the property? Was there a benefit to that?
Great question.
It was the terms that we were offered. We were offered a few different options, and that was one of the options. It wasn't a number that I chose, but it was a number that I liked. and I liked the terms that went along with it, and I was comfortable, very comfortable with that 65%.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that with loan sizing on smaller properties. Whether you get a 20, 25, or 30 or AM, they might do loan to value a little different. So on smaller properties, you're going to run into that.
Well, but even though, David, again, there's products out there that are offering like 80% leverage again now, and it's freaking nuts.
Yeah. Well, I know. I'm just saying back during that period, there was craziness. So
right, yeah. So we're getting back to that. So the people that are looking to refinance, one, you've got to understand your terms going forward, because if I'm going to hold this for another, I don't know, 5 years or whatever, the market can go up or down. I mean, hell, we're in the middle of COVID. And she's like, well, okay, 65%, I think is great, because who knows if the value at the end of this year is going to be here. She's still not underwater, and she can still pay her bills and still make a little cash. So there is no problem in being conservative. Again, she pulled out 2-3 times her damn money to start with. She's still cash flowing, and now she's still got equity in the deal. So
yeah, it's a great conservative approach. I agree with that.
Did you and your investors break even during year 3 due to insurance after the fire and flood?
Yeah, we were about break even. I would actually have to go back and look exactly how close we were. There might have been some months where we were stretched, but overall it was close to that.
And also,
overall the year.
There's also business loss insurance, which will cover the rent, supposedly. I don't know her whole policy, but just so you know, it will come back to you. It just will take a little bit while till the adjusters get in there and all that. So,
did Crosby make you bring the 16 fire units up to code in quotation marks, like complete with sprinklers?
Yeah. Did you have to have basically ordinance and law coverage, bringing up the current code? Did they require that, the fire marshal?
Crosby's, they're Harris County, unincorporated Harris County. So we did have some inspections, but mainly they were only, we had to put sprinkler system in one of the buildings. And so the fire marshal tested that, and there was an electrical inspection, but there was no ordinance and law that had to kick in to bring us up to code, because I mean, basically the one building burned to the ground, and the other building was pretty much gutted. So we were doing that anyway.
So really the answer to that question is yes. The new buildings were built at current code for whatever that code is in that area. And the insurance policy that you have does have a thing called code. What is it? Code or code?
It's ordinance and law.
Yeah.
It's ordinance and law, or law and ordinance. You see it both ways.
So insurance paid to upgrade the electrical, to upgrade the plumbing if needed, upgrade the fire alarm. All that stuff was paid by insurance. So that's why we had it. So that was actually great.
And this is a great point. Just so you know, I actually bring up this whole entire subject about replacement costs versus ACV policy, ordinance and law. I teach all that in the seminar. So it sounds like gobbledygook right now, but I'll break it down so you can understand if you're new.
Perfect.
Can you discuss advertising?
How do you market your property?
What we use? Well, we actually are really focused on that and have been for a little while. One of the things that we found is apartments.com works for us. I think that from talking to people, different kind of sub-markets seem to respond a little better to the different marketing. Are you guys hearing me okay?
Yeah, we're hearing you fine.
Okay. I just got a little message that popped up and said slow connection or something.
Yeah,
so good.
But that's
okay.
Your picture part. Your voice sounds beautiful.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, so we do a lot with apartments.com. We do have a paid subscription there. We use Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace. We get a lot of traffic from that as well. We actually look at this every month together, my team and I, and we just looked at that the other day for the past month. And that's where a lot of our traffic comes in. Excuse me, are those two sources.
Great. Did you hire a professional designer for your exterior rehab and signage, or did you just kind of select what you thought would make the property pop and be eye-catching?
We did, we pretty much did it ourselves. Shannon, as I mentioned, she's my right hand. She loves colors, and and things like that. So she picked the colors for the blue exterior. I think my boyfriend Peyton designed the sign. So it was just kind of what we thought. We might have stolen some ideas from various other properties, or maybe heard some designers talking, but we didn't hire specifically anybody to come in and do that for us.
I mean, it is Crosby, Texas. You can't really overdo it, otherwise you're going to kill your clientele.
Yeah, it would scare them away.
Again, I'm back to that first sign. I still like that first sign. I think that was awesome.
I love that first sign.
Yeah, it looks great. So I really appreciate it. Lee, any final words of wisdom to the new folks out there?
No, just again, I love what Amy said about planting that tree 10 years ago versus planting it now. I mean, if you're here now, if you think real estate is your thing, come to the 2-day. I don't think it costs that much, and it's worth every penny. And just start, do something, get out of the bike gate and get there. And if you do join, again, Lifestyles will help you. I understand the anxiety portion of it as far as getting started and doing something new, but we have all been there, and I understand that considerably, so we will definitely help you with that. So.
And Amy, do you have any final words of wisdom?
I don't know. I think Lee said it all. I mean, he's, like I said, has been a great mentor. He's definitely somebody to talk to when you get into this. And he's a great guy, even though I give him a hard time. But you're gonna find a lot of that at Lifestyles. And I guess maybe one word would be, this is the real deal. We see a lot of this, real estate, like Lee talked about, the late night stuff, but don't be afraid of Lifestyles. Lifestyles is the real deal. It's real. I mean, these people that, like myself, the ones you've heard before me, these are real people with real success stories, and we're not magic. This can be done by anybody that follows the plan that Lifestyles gives you.